Hi everyone. Um, I was I was listening to various things this afternoon while struggling with the ice cream machine. The ice cream machine was behaving today. Uh, it's the churro making machine now that, well, I'm hoping it didn't die and it's just in a coma because if it died, oh Lord, it's made in Spain. So I don't think there's many technicians here. Yeah. So anyway, I'm hoping it will, like a reboot. I just said, okay, let's just first try. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm opening up tabs here. That's not what I wanted. Um, you know, turn it off, let it cool down, and pray to God that it comes back. I told, I told the people I was like, no, it's in a coma. Hopefully, it hasn't completely died. So anyway, yeah, this the thing is, it's like Graham Hancock, same problem with everybody else. Sure, everything he says is very interesting and based on facts and evidence that he's found. I mean, my God, people who believe the history books, the politically correct history books created by the propagandist. Um, yeah, we need a revision in our history. And so it's all very, very interesting. But, like, what's the end goal? What do you want? Go around talking to people all the time, one podcaster to another? I mean, if nobody's going to do anything and just keep on, well, we got another maniac in the White House or another idiot in the White House. So what's new? And it's not even the problem of who is in the White House. That's a revolving door. I mean, Washingtonians really don't care. GDP keeps on going up. They keep on, trying to attract more investors and more corporate business developers to the DC metropolitan area. After World War II ended, and it had really skyrocketed. I mean, World War One and World War II, you saw the population of DC really skyrocket. But even after all of that, it was less than 1 million people. It was just below 1 million people living in the DC metro, which goes into Baltimore. That's the whole metropolis area. Less than 1 million people. A lot of, like, Virginia, the Middleburg, where I went to school, um, that was, still farmland. I mean, these huge farms. I mean, I remember the melon farm. Uh, I went on it one time, and yeah, there's an airstrip over there. There's a mansion over there, a mansion over there. Um, so yeah, definitely something, all of, but that was just one amongst the many. I mean, that's where uh, Jackie O and JFK had a house. And he was always complaining because she was always spending too much money. Ethel was the same thing. That's, after their husbands died, they weren't like Erica Kirk. They had to go out and find a way to, keep up the fortune. Jackie eventually married Onassis. I mean, I'm sorry, you tell about everybody, oh, Jackie, oh, particularly Maureen Callahan and Megan Kelly. Uh, Jackie was going to leave JFK when he was, I guess, either before he got into the Senate or after or something, but around that time. But Joe had his eye on the White House for his son, since he didn't get it, it was going to get his son in there, and the eldest had been killed in World War II. And Jack, as they called him, was a hero, so he was, he was a shoo-in, but yeah, he was always chasing skirts. So, um, he basically bought her off. This is also kind of where, I mean, I'm not going to put it all on Jackie, but this is also where this idea that, women are gold diggers and they should get something in the divorce as repayment for philandering husbands. I mean, that is not, look at any, what I've been going off it on is the civil code under marriage under the civil code, or in the civil code in Spain, because it's in there black and white, the responsibilities, the duties and responsibilities, and in case of dissolution of the marriage. Nowhere does it say if one party or the other had an affair or beat one of them, are they supposed to give them money? And no, that's just something made up by a bunch of greedy lawyers and gold diggers who don't care about women's rights, because all of that type of stuff is one of the reasons why the rights of women in the dissolution, well, even in marriage, I mean, this gets into Princess What's Her Face in Spain. Her husband was in a scandal about money misused, and her defense was, well, I didn't know. Now, I defend her because one of the reasons why I'm going to the courts against Spain was I still have no idea, never got a hold of any of the records of our finances, any of that. And I'm not going to, I mean, this is not about, you know, it's not about the money. I mean, there's the damages that I have against so many other people is so much more than that, whatever is there. And it's not about that. I don't care about that. But it is about establishing, the rights of women in marriage. This is, the trad wife, these little girls, whether it be Candace Owens or Erica Kirk, Riley Gaines, Isabel Brown. I mean, right now Candace is going off on Erica Kirk, but you know, Candace is not that much different. It's the same, young woman goes to New York, the Big Apple, and starts their stellar career as a sugar baby. I mean, they're not necessarily sleeping with the people. I mean, that's what this young woman girl that I work with. Um, and I mean, she is brown nose and she's working everybody. I don't think she's sleeping with these people, but it's like, well, the first step is the brown nosing, then you progress. It's all in the mentality, and I mean, for these girls, it's like, I don't care. They have no respect for themselves or anybody else. So this has always been the issue that I've had with all of these sugar babies of Epstein coming out and playing the victim card. Because the problem is the ones who weren't real victims. This was coming up with the Diddy trial with the woman. I forget what her name is. I don't know. I saw that earlier. Like, not so much a victim. And just, a madam and enabling the whole thing, organizing the whole thing. It's like with Virginia Giuffre, people are saying, oh my God. I mean, the girls, the victims, are saying Virginia, now some of them are saying, Virginia was as bad as Ghislaine Maxwell, and I agree. She was out there recruiting, just like Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, they did exactly the same thing, yet Virginia is martyred and Ghislaine goes to prison. Now, I mean, the issue is also, it doesn't seem, I don't know, in the memoirs of Virginia's Giuffre's, the memoirs that she wrote, these are not the ones that were published after her death. These are the ones that she wrote that were in the court cases against Ghislaine Maxwell. She wrote them about 2014 or so. This is just the life of a sugar baby. Nobody was held against their will. I mean, according to her, there was no sacrifices going on or like experiments, genetical type of there's absolutely no mention or even indication that that was going on. So, you know, for me, just another playboy, Hugh Hefner with his sugar babies, his playgirls, whatever, his bunnies, play bunnies, Hooters. I mean, this holier than thou attitude of all of these people involved when they were promoting this shit, the beauty pageants, the debutante balls, aspire to a life amongst the rich and famous in Washington, New York, or Hollywood. This is the role model. This is what, everybody who's realizing their dreams, they're either want to become an actress, fashion model, or snot-nosed brat up on Capitol Hill. I mean, no wonder this country is going to the dogs. And like I was listening to here, the Stephanie Harlow, that, Epstein Ranch had been, no, they couldn't go there because there was not enough evidence. That was supposedly the excuse of the FBI. So now there are things coming out about Ghislaine being involved. I mean, the most incriminating thing that I've heard about Ghislaine, see, the cannibalism, I don't know. I've never heard anything about that with her. I don't know. I mean, that just because I haven't heard any evidence doesn't mean it's there. But all I'm saying is until there's evidence, this is presumption of innocence. And you got to go through one by one these issues and not, well, she's guilty of something, so let's just, go. No, that's not how a justice system should be working. So, as I say, the most damaging testimony I've heard is this young girl who had been raped by Epstein and Trump and produced a child. She was 13 years old, and that Ghislaine Maxwell had delivered the child. It was pretty compelling testimony. So what happened to the child? And that's, I mean, that is definitely, the proof of human trafficking and being involved in some, child trafficking, baby trafficking, let's put it that way, so we don't confuse the sugar babies with the newborns and these toddlers. and 300,000 missing children. This statistic keeps on, I keep on hearing this statistic over and over again from different, sources. So when you start hearing the same statistic from different independent sources, now they could all be playing, getting it from the same source that is a fictitious number. I don't know, but I keep on hearing it, which usually means that there's some validity to it. It's not just something somebody's pulling out of their hat. So yeah, the thing is listen, and I'm more and more convinced. In fact, where was this? A 1,000,000-year-old skeleton skull that was found. So that's of a Homo sapien. So that's dating us back much farther than anybody has thought. And these indications, I mean, there are definitely civilizations that existed that we don't know about. It's not just starting with Mesopotamia and the Egyptians and all. There's definitely stuff going back farther. You definitely had some great, catastrophically great flood. Graham Hancock thinks that it happened at the end of an ice age, and we were hit by asteroids. Now, this was a long time ago. And that would be the great flood with like Noah. But before that, there have been civilizations. But what he's talking about is that, they somehow caused it themselves, that they were. So let's take a listen. I mean, I'm just getting frustrated. Like, we'll listen first to Hancock, but then to what Candace was posting this evening. Because the thing is Candace, one of the few who has been looking at the feminist movement, but she's doing it. It's all party politicking. She's just positioning herself to rise to power in the conservative Republican movement, where there's a backlash to Trump. And this has been the problem since I've been alive. And part of this is an outgrowth of affirmative action. It's all about party politicking. And, the first Black president. First you have the first Catholic president, JFK. Oh my God. See, people don't realize what an issue it is between the Catholics and the Protestants. And the thing is now Candace is a Catholic to boot, and a minority. I mean, how many Black Catholics are there? Maybe in Louisiana. So, which gets into the history of Louisiana. But they're all driving us off a cliff while they seek power and glory for themselves. And I mean, I've warned everybody, and Candace and all of these other little ladies that want to have it all, whether they be the Democrats, the liberals, or the conservative. The conservative Christians, I think, are the most hypocritical amongst them all. You can't have it all. I mean, Charlie Kirk was saying that you can't have it all. That's a lie. Now, where he was wrong was, oh, once your kids are grown or whatever, you can return to the workforce. Well, no, because markets are flooded with young kids coming out of college with college debt. And so, in order to avoid riots and revolutions, favoritism is given to those kids. And you're producing tons and tons and tons of bullshit jobs. It's like this huge, boat, and it's getting top heavy. There's too many people on it. So, until people realize that, they want their cake in the house. They want to eat their cake. They want to have their cake and eat it too. Excuse me. Oh yeah, we want to keep on going. Living the suburban life, superficial, going shopping, send our kids to college. They just want to get away with us because we're such a pain in the ass. They all go to the urban areas, and then they think they're special. And they want 6-figure salary jobs where they can sit around on their ass and do as little as possible. And have everybody kiss their ass. Like they did in order to grapple the ladder of success. And as long as that's the status quo everybody wants to protect, we will end up in a civil war. And as Graham Hancock says, we're going to self-destruct. Listen. In the 90s, it was felt that anatomically modern. Nope, I didn't do my stairs.
I have some really horrifying news. Apparently, Donald Trump has a predilection for nipples. Pop this up.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah, these girls. This bar is popping up. Sorry.
It's a cataclysmic event. It's just the degree of the cataclysm that's disputed and what caused it that's disputed.
But everyone agrees that humans are 315,000 years old.
At present. When I started on this quest back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was felt that anatomically modern human beings had not existed for more than 50,000 years. Very recent, really. But this turned out to be complete rubbish because anatomically modern humans are much older than 50,000 years ago. We have 196,000-year-old anatomically modern human remains from Ethiopia. And then, finally, 315,000 years ago, a recent find in Jebel Irhoud in Morocco. Again, anatomically modern humans. So we can say that if we define ourselves by our anatomy, brain size, capacity of the skull, if we define ourselves in those ways, we've been around for at least 315,000 years and probably much longer. That's just an accident of discovery. And that's one of the things that puzzles.
Yeah, I don't know where it was, but there was one of these videos, how most recent find was a skull 1 million years old. I think with all of this stuff, like with the reptilian, the dinosaurs, I believe in aliens and from other worlds, that did with DNA kind of use that as to produce a hybrid species with them, a species that could live on the planet. Just from a purely logical perspective, if you're coming from another world and let's say your atmosphere is different, your body's the mix of stuff, you're not going to be able to breathe the atmosphere here, and in order to live here you would have to interbreed with animals that are adapted to this atmosphere. As I say, just from a purely logical perspective. So the dinosaurs that was some experiment, then they came up with dinosaurs before mammals, I don't know, or Was the atmosphere at the time more suitable for reptilian? I don't know. But you would think then, from logical perspective, well, then there were the dinosaurs, so you're going to interbreed with that. I mean, be interesting. I mean, that would be like a wild movie for Hollywood. You know, a dinosaur world, but where the apex predator is this, you know, reptilian intelligent being like Homo sapiens now, but it's kind of this reptilian thing. And that's where you're getting all of these reptilian, you know, stories of these reptilian type aliens that are living wherever. And they can shapeshift. Now that's something I'm just like, God, how that's weird. It's all kind of weird. But yeah, so I mean, it makes sense. And then there is the story like of the snake. There's even, I saw some documentary about the shroud of Christ actually being like some snake skin or something like that. I mean, it was weird, but I mean, I'm always interested in, yeah, why not? And put enough dots together, you start getting a picture. So anyway, that's kind of from what I mean, Graham Hancock's very interesting. But again, what's the end game here? To be knowledgeable? Look at her, knowledgeable. I'm how sophisticated I am. Oh my God, Washington is so full with that bullshit, it's not even funny. See, this is also a problem that I have with Candace's husband, George. See, I mean, Candace first, oh, he's from generational wealth. I'm like, excuse me, Candace, all you got to do is read his Wikipedia page and his father's Wikipedia page, and you know that's not true. Then go on to Ancestry.com and look at the family tree I've done for Candace and her husband. Now, two issues that I have with both of them, impossible to, at least with my resources, to find any information about Candace's mother and George's mother in England. And see, the issue is, oh, and then he's like this baron. The issue with that, he was appointed a baron by Queen Elizabeth II because of all the high risk, high yield trading he did with the metals. What would this be, 80s, 90s, or boom and bust economies? He's one of the guys out there who's responsible for all of this. Hedge fund guy. And the thing is, his father crashed and burned doing the same damn thing. Left his family in poverty and died from alcoholism. I mean, if anybody should understand what I'm all about, is how that system destroyed my husband, my family. I mean, okay, you know, my ex-husband, he also destroyed himself. But, yeah, I mean, I still want to know exactly what happened in Bogota, and everybody pulled this shit with me. I'm going to find out every single thing. Not for this, just because we need to find out also about fixing the banking systems. As I keep on saying, if you really want to construct a good security system, you hire a burglar. So there are some people that I know. There's another Harvey Eisenberg, is another in New York. You know, some of these guys who have helped build this system that are going to know where all the back doors are and all of the details. And all I have to say to them is, okay, you help us dismantle this, or you can go and sit in prison with your other buddies. Pick your poison. because it's got to be fixed. So, because otherwise history is going to repeat itself.
Me. If we're anatomically modern, if we've got all the modern kit, if we've got the same brains, we've got the same neurology, everything is there, why do we wait more than 300,000 years to establish something recognizable as a human civilization? Why did we wait so long? We got all the kit. There's evidence that our ancestors were aware of agriculture, just chose not to use it much earlier than that. The complex of events that leads to a city-based civilization, which is the kind of civilization we have now all over the world, that you can only really trace that back to 6,000 years ago. Yes, you can say that before 6,000 years ago, there was build-up to what became the high civilizations. But my question is, why not much earlier? Why did we wait until that moment? And I don't find a satisfactory answer to that question, except perhaps we didn't wait. Perhaps we're missing part of our story. And when I say a lost civilization, I do not mean a civilization like ours. I do not mean an industrial civilization. I don't mean they had cell phones or flew to the moon or any of that bullshit. I think they were very different civilization from ours, but they had...
Okay, well, I'm not sure about that, really, because if there were aliens and the mix, and there's also evidence of stuff going on the moon. So there, but yeah, I mean, I
had conquered
and basically agree with him. But as I say, I think, and then also the energy. This is something that's really important. This gets into Tesla and free energy and the monuments, the pyramids and the grid. There's also videos about this, the grid that's produced. And if you really dive deep into that, there's a lot of indications that that we can reproduce that free energy. So this whole stuff about cell phones and them, yeah. I mean, they might not look like our cell phones, but yeah, all that stuff was probably around. Maybe back even with the like reptilian and the dinosaur age. I have no idea. I mean, would even like monuments or any kind of things even still exist from that? I mean, they're finding the fossilized remains. I don't know.
Number of peaks. And one of those peaks was navigation and ocean seafaring, hence the survival of maps, which show the world as it looked during the Ice Age. And another was astronomy. And another really important breakthrough evidenced by the ancient maps, particularly a category of maps called the Portolanos, is accurate relative longitudes. This is the Orontius Phineas map. It shows Antarctica right there. This is interesting because this map was drawn in 1531. The problem is that our civilization didn't discover Antarctica until 1820. So its appearance on a map drawn in 1521, particularly when we know that the map was based on older source maps, and the map maker tells us in his own legend that he has uncovered material previously hidden in darkness. When we find that, we have to begin to wonder what is going on here. Had somebody found Antarctica?
Yeah, previously hidden in darkness. So why were we brought back to, we're a civilized, very, very advanced Homo sapiens. We'll talk about, let's keep it simple there, Homo sapiens. If we were so advanced, then why did we have to be gone into this dark ages? Why did all of this technology And this gets into Noah and the flood, and God saying, you're evil, and all of that. It's all related. So why?
Long before we did, and mapped it with extremely accurate relative longitudes. And that's important because our civilization didn't crack the longitude problem until the mid-18th century. What that meant was that if you're on a vessel sailing west or east, you might be 300 miles closer to a coastline than you think you are. And suddenly you're on it in the night and you're dead. Once you've got longitude work out, you know exactly where you are. We didn't get that until 1750s, 1760s, thereabouts with Harrison's chronometer. So finding good longitudes on very ancient maps is another puzzle that I don't think archaeology solved.
So you think there could have been a civilization 20,000 years ago, which was before this young Dryas moment, where, I've got this photo here, which I'll throw up on the screen.
Yeah.
I think you say is evidence that something took place.
It is. That's the Younger Dryas boundary. And I'm with Alan West, who's one of the scientists from the Comet Research Group who are working on the Younger Dryas hypothesis. And our hands are on that black stripe running through the middle of the draw. And that is soot. That is evidence of wildfires burning. It's full of nanodiamonds, tiny little diamonds, microscopic size, which are a classic product of comet impacts, microspherules, some platinum, some iridium, all signatures of a cometary impact. And there it is. It's about 5 inches thick. That layer is the Younger Dryas boundary layer. It dates to 12,800 years ago.
So for anyone that can't see, it's just like a slice of earth and there's this black line going through the earth.
We're in a draw here where a river has cut a channel and it's exposed the sides of the channel. And on the sides of the channel, we can see this black stripe running through, and that is precisely the Younger Dryas boundary.
And the current hypothesis is, from a lot of archaeologists, is there wasn't a human civilization before this point 12,000 years ago.
Correct.
But you believe there's strong evidence that there could have been.
Yes.
So civilization then, in your definition of the word, how do you define that? A group of people gathering and working together?
Fundamentally, it involves the willing organization or the unwilling organization of labor. If you look at a site like Gobekli Tepe in Turkey, we have it on our timeline here somewhere. It's 11,600 years old.
Organization of labor. This is why it's so important to combat what the HR industry and snot-nosed brats and power-hungry idiots want to create chaos and division between people in working towards a common goal. You can't get anything done in Washington or any place because nobody worked together. They're all a bunch of prima donnas who want to be chef, who want to be in power and control. My favorite is I just learned how to clean our ice cream machine, and I'm learning all sorts of little problems that have been in there. Because the snot-nosed brat who I work with, she wanted to I was like, show me how to do it, because if it needs to be done and you're not around, it's going to have to wait until you do it, and you're going to have to always do it. You won't always do it. I'm fine with that. It's a pain in the ass to clean that damn thing. Work together. Work together. Check your egos at the door and get to work.
This is really an extraordinary site. It's a very sophisticated site. It's very large. It consists of large T-shaped megaliths that can weigh up to 20 tons. There are precise astronomical alignments in it. This was not done by 2 or 3 people working together. This was, that's the Gobekli Tepe today, covered by a modern canopy to keep, fair enough, to keep the weather off it, because it was previously deliberately buried by its builders. But of course, there's much more around. Hundreds and hundreds more pillars are still underground. We know they're there because of ground penetrating radar, but they've not been excavated yet. So this was a major project. And interestingly, the people who built Gobekli Tepe, at the time Gobekli Tepe began, there was no agriculture happening there. They were all hunter-gatherers. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, they did something that archaeologists used to say hunter-gatherers couldn't do. They organized themselves They made a huge project, they implemented it, and they delivered it, and Gobekli Tepe is not alone. It's one of dozens of sites like that all over Anatolia in Turkey. This was a highly organized, sophisticated hunter-gatherer civilization that was involved in making this place.
I'm a little bit confused. So if the Ice Age ended 11,700 years ago, and Gobekli Tepe is 11,600 years ago, that means there's a 100-year gap between the end of the Ice Age and something as sophisticated as Gobekli Tepe.
Not exactly, because dates in this frame, they're not spot-on accurate dates. Some will say the Ice Age ended 11,600. Some will say it ended 11,700 years ago. But the fact is that in this window, the world was warming up again. It was getting better. And that's when this project was created. And the mystery for archaeologists anyway, is that it was hunter-gatherers. And archaeologists are now having to come to terms with that. You see, the idea was you had to have an agricultural community first in order to create projects like this, because that allows people to become specialists. If you generate a food surplus that you can rely on, then you can take people with certain skills and say, focus on that, become an astronomer, become an architect, become an engineer. We'll support you in doing that. That was the idea, and that was why it was felt that something like Gobekli Tepe couldn't be built until about 6,000 years ago, when there was widespread agriculture. But that turned out not to be true. It was built by hunter-gatherers, but within 1,000 years of it being built, agriculture becomes present in that whole area. Origins of agriculture are definitely earlier than we've been taught.
So it's funny because I don't know a lot about the Ice Age, but humans survived the Ice Age.
Oh God, yes, we did. It's just where do you want to be during an Ice Age? That's the question.
What are my options?
If you were a rational being, which most human beings are, you would immediately exclude Northern Europe. Absolutely no point in being in that frozen, miserable wilderness. You'd immediately exclude the northern part of North America too. No point in being there. It's just horrible at that time. Siberia, pretty rough. No, you'd look for the tropics. You'd go down close to the equator. You'd go to the places that weren't affected by the Ice Age, that were actually the best real estate on Earth. That's where you'd go. That's why if we are looking for a missing episode in the human story, we're wasting our time looking for it in Northern Europe or North America. We should be looking for it in Mexico. We should be looking for it in India. We should be looking for it in Indonesia. We should be looking for it around Papua New Guinea, all of these areas that were really...
The only problem with this theory is if you had a polar shift. Because if you had a polar shift, Antarctica, and there is evidence that was once, you had fauna there, you had plants and everything, so it wasn't covered in ice. So, when these are, you got to put together those timelines. Now, could that mean that a polar shift happened at another time and what he's talking about? Lots of variables. Very interesting.
Great places to live during the Ice Age. That's the kind of place that the sort of civilization I'm talking about could have thrived.
What is the difference? Because on here it says the earliest known humans were 300,000 odd years ago.
Yeah.
What is the difference between these humans 300,000 years ago and the civilization you're describing 20,000 years ago that you believe existed?
Apart from what is perhaps wrongly described as a slight refinement in human features, natural selection operating on what humans perceive as beauty, I don't know, but otherwise the same.
The same?
The same, yeah. And again, that's not disputed. Nobody's saying that Jebel Irhoud human beings were somehow different from us. They're anatomically modern humans.
But how did they live versus your definition of a civilization?
They lived a simple hunter-gatherer life.
Okay, in small groups.
Yeah, but somehow, around 11,600 years ago, people started accumulating monuments that can only be made with large groups and organized labor. You have to have a system. You have to have a plan. You can't build something like Gobekli Tepe without planning it out in advance. You've got to draw it out somehow. There has to be a plan. It's not something you just wing. So there's a missing background to all of that, which bothers me.
And again, so most people think civilization started, 6,000 years ago?
Yes, that would be when civilizations become archaeologically visible. So you have ancient Sumer, Mesopotamia, which roughly 3,500, I'm going to use BC because everybody's familiar with that, roughly 3,500 BC, which is 5,500 years ago, approximately, we start seeing cities being built. We start seeing the beginnings of writing taking place. Round about the same time, the same thing is happening in Egypt. Maybe a couple of hundred years later, but the new work that's being done in Egypt is pushing Egypt much closer to Sumer, narrowing that window. Effectively, you can say that these two civilizations become archaeologically visible at the same time. And they're not alone.
Yeah. In the Americas.
Because on the other side of the world, in Peru, there's a civilization now recognized called the Caral Supe civilization, which built pyramids, which also goes back 5,500 years. And this is one of the mysteries I'm looking at now, is why we have these apparently coincidental emergence of high civilizations in the same window all around the world. Indus Valley civilization, roughly the same, 5,000 years old. Yeah, we're looking at Caral here, I think. Yeah. Now, the feature is these circular plazas in front of them, and then the pyramid with these were not expected in Peru. When archaeologists think of Peru, they tend to think of Machu Picchu, the Inca civilization. That's what gets all the coverage.
And that's 600 years ago.
That's 600 years ago. That's yesterday. Whereas these Caral Supe pyramids, Caral, Aspero, Banduria, Penico, these ones are much older, thousands of years older. They're extremely sophisticated. They built with an earthquake-proof technology. Instead of using blocks, they put small stones in textile bags, and those allow a certain amount of shifting so the thing doesn't collapse in an earthquake. And this is 5,500 years old, getting on. So again, not an agricultural civilization at that time. They're a hunter-gatherer civilization. So archaeologists are having to confront a reversal of their model at the moment, and I think there's room in that reversal of the model for a forgotten episode in the human story.
Tell me about this forgotten episode in the human story.
Yeah, it's remembered all around the world as a golden age, where there was no violence, no cruelty, where great healers and sages were at work, where powers that are scorned in our society today, such as telepathy and telekinesis, which are regarded as completely non-existent by our scientists, were regarded as a matter of fact of life in this ancient world. That's a civilization that emerged out of shamanism and made something good. But then, if you follow the myths further, as I've done, you find something odd happens. You find that they've stepped away from the original purity, that they've become a culture that begins to impose its power on others around the world. And that's always given as the reason for the cataclysm in the myths, that we angered the gods. It might have been with our noise. It might have been with our irreverence. We angered the gods and they sent a flood. They weren't happy with their creation. They wanted to start again, wipe the slate clean. And so there's always this feeling in the myths, and I can't explain it. I don't know what it comes from, but it's always there, is that in some way we ourselves brought this upon ourselves.
Is this those people not understanding the forces of Mother Nature and trying to sort of justify it as
or perhaps a deeper understanding of the forces of Mother Nature?
Maybe.
Perhaps the way that human beings are operating in the world today should be included amongst the forces of nature. We are a geological force. And worse than that, we're a psychic force, which is full of anger and hatred and suspicion and mutual destruction. That's not going to be good for nature. That's going to be disturbing. We're an integrated system, in my view. We're not separate. Human beings are part of all of this, and what we do affects all of that. And that's what the ancient myths seem to testify to. So, if I may finish on that.
All of the evil and this, Elizabeth April. I was listening to her this morning. It was the same thing, and she says the same thing, and I agree with her. That there's this. It's like I always tell people, it takes as much energy to be nice and polite as it does to be a bitch. And if you're nice and polite to people, in theory, they'll be nice and polite to you, unless they're just a hardcore bitch and they're going to be bitchy to everybody. And that's an epidemic proportions in DC and everywhere. But, but if you're rude and you're a bitch to somebody, well, you're definitely not going to incite them to be polite to you back. Now, particularly in customer service, you just have to, keep your cool and bite your tongue, but be firm. But as I'm saying, it's just this mojo, karma, whatever you want to call it, and collectively that produces the vibe of the community, the harmony of the community, or disharmony of the community. And we're at a total disharmony right now. I mean, okay, I've been pointing my fingers at a lot of people that don't, let's just say these are amongst the leaders of this, the new KKK, the Kerry Kennedy clan. Well, Cornelia Guest, I've been Deb of the decade when I was the reluctant debutante in the 80s, the whole Foxcroft School crowd. There's lots of examples. Oh, don't even get me started on some of these journalists in DC. Let's see, Carol Joint, Katie Couric. I can't wait to see her in court. Amy Goodwin, just unfortunately, Barbara Wawa is no longer around. I mean, these feminists have been just, they're the evil. They're the evil in this story.
When I look at our civilization today, I don't want to go off on a rant, but when I look at our civilization today, I see a civilization that ticks all the mythological boxes, every single one, for the next lost civilization. And I envisage a situation 10 or 15,000 years from now when we will be a myth, a fantasy, that our ancestors actually could speak to one another on opposite sides of the planet, that our ancestors, they could fly to the moon, they could go to the depths of the ocean. The archaeologists of that time will say, complete fantasy, just made up, never happened, but it did.
Well, I hope not. Oh, no, we're going to repeat and re-repeat this loop. It'll probably keep us on Earth of never learning from our mistakes and angering the gods, so they send down a reset. We can't get past that loop, then I guess we'll never progress.
We're that lost civilization. And we don't need a comet, and we don't need solar activity, because we're so psychically messed up as a species, we'll probably end up doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what nuclear weapons are about. Mass species suicide. And the mental processes that drive that, very dangerous, very effective of the world we live in.
Yeah.
Hatred is a psychic force, and the way it's being generated around the world.
And the story of Adam and Eve, the Eve here is the feminist Eve, like in All About Eve movie. Yeah, well, if we can't get rid of that and vanquish them, oh, we're doomed.
World at the moment, and mobilized and focused, is it's got to be bad for all of us.
Especially when we have such powers to self-destruct.
Oh, it's terrible. This is what drives me nuts, is looking at the low consciousness level of the so-called leaders on this planet. When I look around the whole bunch of them, I just see very low consciousness individuals who define everything in material terms, who are focused on. This also gets me into trouble, but I think nationalism is something that humanity needs to grow out of. We need to grow out of nationalism. It's just an extension of tribalism. We need to grow out of it soon. And let me be clear, I'm
not, I'll let him finish, but I'm not necessarily in agreement with that, because from nationalism, I'm trying to, because with the globalist and globalization, one of the attacks and the erosion of rights has been sovereignty rights as much as citizens' rights. Nobody talks about this. It's gone on the radar. Oh, you're crazy. But, you give me, I'll show you exactly how it's been happening. This is what a lot of my cases for the international courts are about. You need competition. We're better with competition. We work better. We need to work together, but in a healthy competition. Well, he was talking about this utopian past and stuff, and division of labor, but healthy competition. I mean, this is why sports, a lot of times it's good. It pushes you. You're up against somebody else that, like in a race, and you're really tired, but no, I'm going to beat this other person. I'm going to arrive first. And sometimes that, that's what keeps you moving. Where if you were just going by yourself, you wouldn't be motivated to run the mile. But, like healthy competition, that you're both giving your best efforts. And at the end of the line, you shake hands and say, we did a great job because we both pushed each other, instead of trying to trip up the guy running with you. So even if he's, stronger and faster, you get to win. That's unhealthy competition. So, and with the nationalism, that provides a healthy competition, and all, you have diversity. Well, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it sounds good on paper because it's not. I mean, the equity stuff, I'm like, what's that all about? Equality, that is a better word. Equal rights, that's what I'm about. Diversity, I mean, I've always had diverse number of friends. Well, they've all canceled me, but and traveling around these diverse cultures, you have different cuisines, you have different fashions. That adds to the human experience. If we were all the same, well, that's what Russian and Chinese communism was with the gray garbs. I mean, I kind of go, well, the Puritans kind of look like that as well. So yeah, the Puritans did sometimes go a little bit too far, but it was a backlash to the opulence of the Anglican Church, which had been about, so King Henry VIII could get a divorce, and that's what the Puritans were revolting against. Was, yeah, you guys didn't change anything from what the problems with the Catholics. You just changed the head of it, but still same can of worms. So.
Talking about world government. I don't want any government. I'm an anarchist, basically, and that's what anarchy means. It means without government. I don't want any government at all. But we have to.
That's where we divide. You need government in order to maintain order. We have to have some form of government. Anarchy. I mean, my ex-husband, both of his grandfathers were on the losing side of the Spanish Civil War. The one from Barcelona was an anarchist. The one from Madrid was a communist. At least the guy from the communist, I mean, he believed in something and the cause and all, and he admitted at the end, he was like, yeah, they're all just the same. But the anarchist, I said, yeah, the problem with the anarchist, not ideological either. They just want power and control for them, and they're mean old coots.
Get past this notion that by accident I was born with this particular skin. The notion is that these accidents of birth define us, that we must somehow massively respect and love people who look like us, and kind of hate and fear people who don't look like us. We have to get past that. We have to get past that as a species. It's really important. All human beings everywhere, all the same fundamentally. Of course, we're vastly diverse. We have incredible different gifts. I value and appreciate the differences in different cultures all around the world. This is wonderful, but it doesn't have to come with, and we are better than you, and we're going to kill you because you don't share our ideas. This is insane.
Yeah, well, at the moment, the Americans are at the head of that, internationally, but they have been for a long time, but everybody's trying to catch up and take the lead. That's what we need to change.
It's crazy. We're not a mature species. We're a childish species, and leading our species.
Because, oh Lord, when my older sister and I used to laugh. She lived abroad longer than I did. I was 20 years. And she was like, yeah, I have heard every single bad thing. What I've heard about Americans this, Americans that. And so, now, some of this stuff I do agree with, and some of this stuff I just laugh and go, yeah, well, shall I give you a mirror? Because you guys do the same shit.
Are leaders who have the mentality of deranged teenagers.
We elected them.
Yeah, we did, very unfortunately, which shows how easy it is to...
well, with bought systems,
manipulate the narrative in the world today. Today, who wins in elections isn't the best person, isn't the good person, isn't the person who's going to do good. It's the best communicator who wins.
So this ancient civilization that we could have theoretically forgotten, you were somewhat implying that maybe they were right, that their own actions caused the Great Flood, as they say.
Massey. It was flagrant. Voila, you guys. See how the elections are bought and sold. Even wherever, whenever they want it.
They talk about it in mythology.
Well, I floated that notion, yeah. They might have been. But it's enough to say that that's what they believed, because that's what all the myths say. The Noah story is prefigured in ancient Sumer with an almost identical flood myth. The gods are angry. A great flood is going to be sent. The intention is to wipe out humanity. But this god, who's called Enki, says to Atrahasis, I'm going to save you. Build a boat, build it now, a big one. Put into it the seeds of all things that you will need. Bring each animal of every kind into your boat. This is a kind of survival arc, which is exactly the same as Noah. Noah's Ark is just copied on that. It's just borrowed from that.
And to people that say, well, these are just stories, these are fictions that someone wrote and then they pass them down and there's no truth in these things at all.
They're welcome to say that. I just happen to think they're not, and my job has been to make that case. I do not claim that I have proved there was a lost civilization. Any archaeologist who says Hancock claims he's proved that is lying. I don't claim that. I claim I'm puzzled and mystified, and I'm gonna complete that journey as long as I can. I'm going to carry on investigating and looking into all.
The thing is, he's proved this reminds me of Gary Melton and the whole Candace Owens shit. I mean, Graham Hancock hasn't gone out and done archaeological digs in all of these different places. The people who have proven that this exists are the people who've done the archaeological digs and have the physical evidence and and he's just putting pieces together. So does he, is he the one who proves it? No, he puts pieces together and he says, well, here's a picture. It may not be. It's like if you give a kid a picture that still needs to be colored in and stuff, but you got all the basic lines, or they've got the dots in there, and they got to connect. First, they got to connect all of the different dots, and then they got to color in the picture. He's still connecting the dots, but the picture is starting to make sense. Once your picture, so when you start with one of those connect the dots things, well, where do I start? Oh, when you get halfway there, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is what a bird or a whatever. Same principle.
Aspects of this, because that's what I'm here to do.
And that lost civilization, you said they were seafaring, potentially.
Seafaring, yeah.
Which means they had boats?
Yeah. So we know, for example, that anatomically modern human beings reached Australia 60,000 years ago. Those involve significant sea journeys. They reached Cyprus in the Mediterranean 14,000 years ago. Again, they involved sea journeys, not engine boats, not metal boats. You can do it on quite simple craft. Look at the Polynesians. Look at the vast distances that they explored on outrigger canoes. So yeah, boats, but not our kind of boats.
I just don't understand how, if they're traveling the seas in boats, how they aren't classified as a civilization.
Well, because
that I think there might. Okay, I mean, I'm not looking at any kind of evidence or something, but I mean, the Pacific Ocean in a canoe or something, I think there's more there.
To the mainstream model, which I am trying to provide an alternative to, they never existed. There was no such people. They never did these things. The maps are just coincidences, irrelevance. It's just odd. They put Antarctica, they put a land mass in Antarctica because they felt it would balance the world. That's the theory that's given. And it's just, to me, it's not satisfactory. It just doesn't add up. These things need to be explained. And it's why in every society which wishes to make progress, mavericks, people who go against the grain, no matter how much shit they have to take, are needed. They're needed in our society to provide a balance to this overwhelming mass that science now occupies. Science has now come to occupy the space that religion occupied in many people's minds. And again, I need to emphasize, I'm not against science. Science is about to save my life. I have major heart surgery coming up in 2 weeks' time. I'm not against it at all, but I think it should be one weapon in our armory, not the only weapon.
There should be a button just down below here. And if it says subscribed, you're already subscribed. If it says subscribe,
you're going to end up with a corkscrew rather than a pyramid. If you get it wrong at the bottom, those errors are going to magnify and they're going to get worse and worse, and it's not going to be a pyramid at the end of the day. Secondly, weight calculated at about 6 million tons, more than 2 million individual blocks of stone. I've climbed the pyramid 5 times. Once I climbed it when there was an event taking place on the Giza Plateau, picnics basically, and a lot of Kairenes just decided to climb the pyramid. As I say, I've climbed it 4 other times without other people there, but this time there were hundreds of people on the pyramid. That's when I realized how difficult this thing is to make, because the biggest danger was the other people. Once you're up 2 or 3 courses, you fall, you're dead. It's a 52-degree slope. There's no way you're going to stop. You're going to come down. And still every year people die on the Great Pyramid. That's why they've made it illegal to climb it now. So there's that. Then there's the almost perfect alignment of the Great Pyramid to true north. Not to compass north, which is about 10 or 11 degrees off true north, but to astronomical north, real north. The Great Pyramid is aligned within 3/60ths of a single degree. I put it that way because degrees are divided into 60 minutes, so 3 minutes of arc. The Great Pyramid is aligned to that level of precision, 3/60ths of a single degree to true north. And they've done that on a 6 million ton monument, which is 481 feet high, if you take account of its original height, which has a 52-degree slope, which is filled with internal corridors and spaces, Grand Gallery, the ascending, the descending corridors, all of this is extremely difficult to do. It's not impossible to do because we see it there. Could our civilization do it? Yeah, I think we could. But would we do it? No, I don't think we would. The motive wouldn't be there. People say, why? I mean, why do you want to align it perfectly to true north? It's enough to ask me to build a 6 million ton monument, but you want it aligned to true north as well? Come on. I mean, that's a really difficult specification. We'd find that hard. A kind of artistry was put to work on the Great Pyramid as well as skill. Let's get rid of any notion that slaves were involved. They were not. There wasn't slavery in the Old Kingdom anyway, but this is a work of love from the first to the last stone. It's a work done with great skill and care. It's a beautiful and extraordinary thing, both inside and out. It sits almost exactly on latitude 30, which is 1/3 of the way between the North Pole and the equator. And it incorporates the dimensions of the Earth on a scale of 1 to 43,200 in its own dimensions. So if you take the height of the Great Pyramid and multiply it by 43,200, I'll explain why that number matters. Multiply it by that number, you get the polar radius of the Earth. Measure the base perimeter of the Great Pyramid, multiply it by the same factor, 43,200, and you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. Archaeologists know this. They say it's a coincidence, total coincidence, just by chance. However, I could agree with them, actually, if the scale was not 1 to 43,200. But the fact that it's 1 to 43,200 changes everything, because that belongs to a sequence of numbers that is found in ancient mythology all around the world. And those numbers are all multiples of the number 72. And I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion the book by the great historian of science, Giorgio de Santillana, professor of the history of science at MIT. He was the first to identify that these numbers and the imagery that go with them derive from a phenomenon called the precession of the equinoxes. I better explain that a little bit. The precession of the equinoxes. Everybody's heard the song, "We Live in the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius." I'm sure you've heard that.
No comment.
We live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. That's astrology. At the moment, and for the last 2,000 years, on the spring equinox, the sun has risen against the background of the constellation of Pisces. That's the age of Pisces. We live in the age of Pisces. It's not an accident that the early Christians used the fish as their symbol. The next constellation on the zodiac, when you go backwards around it, is Aquarius. And the precession is actually caused by a wobble on the axis of the Earth. I'm going to pretend that this is the Earth.
Okay.
And instead of just doing this, while it's doing that, it's also doing that. It's wobbling. Mm-hmm. And that affects the rising time and season at which particular stars rise. It affects two things noticeably. One thing it affects is the pole star. At the moment, the pole star is Polaris. The pole star, this is astronomical north. It's the star towards which the extended north pole of the Earth points most directly.
Okay.
At present, it's Polaris. It hasn't always been Polaris. 4,000 years ago, it was Thuban in the constellation of Draco. That's because the Earth's axis is doing this. At the horizon, it does the same thing with the zodiacal constellations. We shift gradually through each constellation, lasts about 2,000 years in each constellation. The great year where we come back to square one is just under 26,000 years. 25,920 years is the convention that's applied in ancient mythology. So the fact that one of those numbers is the scale used to encode the dimensions of the Earth in the Great Pyramid cannot be accidental, in my view. It's a deliberate choice. If it was 1 to 57,000, I wouldn't pay attention to it. If it was 1 to 21,000, I wouldn't pay attention to it. But 1 to 43,200, that's the number of syllables in the Rig Veda, for example. You find this all over the world, everywhere.
So what does that imply or suggest?
What it suggests is that incorporated into the building of the Great Pyramid was knowledge that was not supposed to have existed 4,500 years ago. In fact, knowledge that was not supposed to have existed until 2,000 years ago. Hipparchus of Alexandria is the Greek who was supposed to have discovered precession, but the incorporation of precession in the structure of the Great Pyramid says to me that that knowledge is much older. It was already old then.
I really want to make sure I'm clear on this precession thing, because I'm not super clear.
Yeah.
What does it mean, precession? It means that there's a certain star pattern that we see once every 20,000 years?
It precesses, it goes backwards.
Okay.
The direction through the zodiac is forwards in the normal year, but in the long-term year, because of the wobble, the sun rises against the background of the spring equinox. The sun rises perfectly due east. It always does. Mm-hmm. It also rises perfectly due east on the autumn equinox. On the summer solstice, the sun rises in the northern hemisphere north of east and south of east on the winter solstice. The key moment for the ancients was the equinox. It was considered to define the character of the year. And what defined it was the constellation that housed the sun, that was the house of the sun.
Okay, so the star pattern.
Yeah,
right.
A zodiacal constellation. The constellations of the zodiac lie along what is called the ecliptic, the path of the sun. Okay, the Earth, the moon, we're all on the ecliptic within a few degrees above or below it. And therefore, these are constellations that we can see the sun against the background of. Mm-hmm. Constellation like Orion, you'll never see the sun against the background of it. You're only going to see it against the background of the zodiacal constellations that lie on the so-called path of the sun. And those are the 12 familiar constellations of the zodiac. And as I say, we're living in the age of Pisces right now. And according to ancient astrology, we're going to be making the transition into Aquarius within about the next 150 years. The sun will have left Pisces and will be rising in Aquarius. So actually the song is true. We do live in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. The only question is whether that means anything or not. The ancients thought it did. We think it doesn't. I'm not sure who's right.
So I'm going to repeat this back to you to check if I've got it correctly, but I suspect I might not have. Within the design of the pyramids, there was a number, which you said was 43,200.
It's a scale.
It's a scale.
It's a scale that's used for the height and the base perimeter of the Great Pyramid. Base perimeter, measure 4 sides, add it together, height, the actual height of the Great Pyramid. Its true original height, it lost about 30 feet in an earthquake in 1301, but you can calculate the true original height from the angle of the sides.
Ah, yeah, right.
And when you take that height and multiply it by 43,200, you get the polar radius of the Earth.
You get the radius of the Earth.
That's from the center of the Earth to the edge of the Earth. It's not the diameter of the Earth. The diameter is twice the radius. Mm-hmm. It's the polar radius.
Okay.
A key dimension of the Earth. Measure the sides, and you get, on the same scale, 1 to 43,200, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth, what the Earth measures at its equator, its largest measure. And that is either a coincidence or it's deliberate. And because of the number chosen, and because that number is all over ancient mythology, I think it's deliberate.
That means that
this is where geometry and, I remember when I was learning geometry at Foxcroft, what really fascinated me was Euclidean. The Euclidean logic, all of those different things. I was always kind of like, where is the connection? With, the actual math and stuff, that was just basic, math. It really wasn't very complicated. But it is fascinating. And geometry is fascinating.
They must have known the circumference of the Earth.
Yeah. It means that they knew the circumference of the Earth, and it means they chose a place to put the Great Pyramid, which also was relevant. This isn't latitude 23 or latitude 37. This is just a fraction off latitude 30 degrees north. So therefore 1/3 of the way between the equator and the North Pole. It's a significant relative. What it's telling us is this monument speaks to the Earth. This monument is locked into the true north of this planet. This monument gives you the dimensions of this planet. This monument is speaking to this planet.
How could they possibly know the circumference of the Earth 4,500 years ago?
Because they're a lost civilization. Because the knowledge comes down from a former time. I don't think the Egyptians knew it. I think it came down. I think it was inherited knowledge from what I'm here to advocate for and to speak for, the possibility of a major forgotten episode in the human story.
Which could be 20,000 years ago.
Yes.
And they've passed it down in myths and stories.
Yes, passed it down, but not only in myths and stories. This is something else that I'll just hint at here, that I intend to get into in the new book, is that there appear to have been organizations in each of these civilizations. In Egypt, they were called the followers of Horus. In Sumer, they were called the Apkallu. They served as advisors to kings. They were called sages. There's a reference to them. Many cultures refer to them as the 7 sages. They provided advice to kings in the historical period. And I'm wondering whether we're looking at some kind of long-lived organization here, which is carrying down information, looking for the right time to switch the engine of civilization back on again. I know it sounds extreme, but that's what I do. I explore extreme ideas and see whether they fit or not. And I'm beginning to find this idea does fit. It fits with a whole range of information, which will be in the next book.
A sage that reports to the king and
not only reports to the king, that advises the king.
On what?
On everything, on what to do.
Okay.
Yeah. The Apkallu, in the ancient traditions of Sumer, they existed in the pre-Diluvian world. They were there in the world.
Everybody, all the social climbers want to blame everything. Oh, it's the aristocracy, it's the kings, it's the Rothschilds right now. But I'm trying to get the royalty, the few royalty that remain, to come down from their ivory towers and start assuming the job, because they are monarchs, they are the head of the executive branch. And that, our system with the president is based on the British system, the English system, and just the president we have a president instead of a king. Now, this ain't working out too good, because this revolving door has created another problem. That, this continuity. With the continuity issue, you had too many becoming fat, lazy, and stupid. So, it's just, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the whole thing with hierarchies, and most of the kings, when I'm looking at the English system, you have all of these kings, and up to a certain point, they become kings because they've won wars and territories. And so within these wars, they have these huge domains of territories, but they have to be administered. So that's how they build their hierarchical structure of feudal lords. But then the feudal lords start, well, wait a second. Why are you up at the top of the hill? I'm going to try and depose you. So then you get the problem with the feudal lords, whereas they're supposed to be concentrating everybody on producing a wonderful Camelot, where the people are very happy and will not rise up, with all these feudal lords and kings always fighting each other for power. And who's going to rule first. But so the kings came into power originally that way because they earn the territories. Then it becomes hereditary. And then you get infighting within the families because, oh, no, I want to be king. No, I want to be king. I want to be king. But then you have a period where the monarchs, the kings and queens, then they're developing, fashion wear, fine cloths, cuisine, rather than just eating gruel and mutton. It's always like you read about the English, they're eating their mutton back in the 16 and 1700s. You're like, ooh. So they develop, this is where they become civilized. instead of just kind of animals that wear clothes and eat and live to survive. This is where you get Maslow's hierarchy of needs coming in. But so then they produce, cuisines and manners and etiquette and try and refine the society. This gets into your educational system. I mean, all of these institutions are really getting a bashing at present. Homeschool. I'm like, God, no. Fix your freaking educational system. Instead of just, I'm just going to worry about me and the rest of the world go screw themselves. This will end up with another Noah's flood.
Before the flood. Then they taught mankind knowledge then. But the flood came, the cataclysm came, they were wiped out. But some of the Apkallu survived, and they appear after the flood as advisors.
Yeah, one of the things that I never could I mean, even as a child, I'm like, okay, so the Noah story, if he takes his kids on the ark with him, I guess there's the son and maybe a daughter, I forget. After the flood subsides, where are they going to find these wives that they apparently found if everything was destroyed? That was always a thing that I was like, well, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. If all of these people were destroyed, how did they find some wives? Where'd these wives come from? Y'all tell me, I don't know.
To the earliest historical kings of Sumer. And I'm just wondering whether, there are religions in the world which have maintained traditions and maintained offices, priesthoods, for example, for thousands of years. I don't see why the same shouldn't be true here, why there shouldn't have been some driving motive at the end of the Ice Age to preserve in a way what they knew and to find mechanisms to pass it down. One mechanism is to embed it in wonderful stories that will go on being told. And another mechanism is to set up some kind of secret society.
Yes, generation after generation. And normally the storytellers, I mean, particularly for the young, it's the women, it's the mothers. Always Little Red Riding Hood is everything else. I used to read these stories to my kids every night. It's very important, all of these little stories. I mean, this is one of the problems with, the narcissism epidemic. These kids haven't learned your basic, Hansel and Gretel story, Little Red Riding Hood story, the Cinderella. I'm trying to think of a good one. 3 Little Bears. I'm trying to think of a good one. But all of these different stories, it helps children make sense of the world. With all of these women getting in positions of power, the kids, no wonder we got such idiot kids out there.
Is operating behind the scenes to guide and steer society. I'm not going to present the evidence for that here, but it's an avenue I'm pursuing. If I don't find it a satisfactory avenue, I'll abandon it. But at the moment, it's looking very interesting.
Then where did all this information go? Because if the people who built the pyramids of Giza had this information, where did the sages go and with their information?
Yeah, it's very odd actually. What happens after Giza is fascinating, because once you leave the 4th dynasty period, you get into the 5th and 6th dynasties, pyramid building collapses. The stuff they're making in the 5th dynasty, like the Pyramid of Unas, 5th dynasty pyramid in Saqqara. Inside, it's stunningly beautiful. Beautiful tomb chamber, stars on the ceiling, incredible hieroglyphs on the side. It's magical. But outside, it's just a pile of dust. It's a mess. You could hardly recognize it as a pyramid. And it's true of all those. So this is odd in itself. Normally, when human cultures create something, they continue to work on it, and it tends to get better and better, not worse and worse. So it's odd what happens to the pyramids, that they get worse and worse in Egypt. It's like, job done that, move on. And that's there. And that's going to speak to human beings, not just for a generation, not just for 100 years. It's going to be there speaking to us for thousands of years. It's going to be sitting there on the Giza Plateau like an enormous question mark, calling towards it those who don't see it just as a heap of stones, but actually see it as something wonderful and magnificent and mysterious, calling them to it and saying, learn about me, figure me out. And in the process of learning about me, you're going to learn so much else. Well, in learning about the Great Pyramid, I find that it is encoded with astronomical information that should not be there if the current model of the history of science is correct. I think the current model of the history of science is wrong. I think this information was known much earlier and it's encoded in the Great Pyramid. Once I know that, then I have to start thinking, what else does that mean? And what else it means to me is a big forgotten episode in our story.
Again, why? Because they had intelligence that they're not credited with having at that time.
Yes, because it's there. Because there should not be a monument of this scale which incorporates into it information that was not supposed to be available to human beings for another 2,500 years.
So they must have got it from somewhere.
Yes, they must have got it from somewhere. And the fact that it's there is just a fact. All that's left for us to say is either it's a coincidence, complete coincidence, or it's the result of a deliberate decision. And if it's the result of a deliberate decision, that weighs much more towards a deliberate decision because of the scale chosen, because the scale is part of a system that is found all over the ancient world. It's not a random number. It's a very specific number. And it's a number that is derived from a motion of the Earth itself, from the precession of the Earth's axis. It is derived from that. So I'm situated at a significant latitude, I'm oriented to true north, and I incorporate the measurements of your planet on a scale derived from your planet itself. That's what the Great Pyramid is saying to us. And it's saying, figure that out.
Do you think there's something underneath it?
Oh, there's definitely something underneath it.
Because we think of it as a sort of like building with tunnels inside it. But
yeah, when you go into the Great Pyramid now, you go in through what is called the Robber's Tunnel or Mamun's Hole. The Caliph al-Mamun had a notion that there would be an entrance to the Great Pyramid in its northern face. Other pyramids had been found with entrances in their northern face. But at that time, the Great Pyramid was completely covered with perfectly smooth limestone facing stones, and nobody could see the entrance. They came off later in that earthquake in 1301. But when he broke in the 9th century, they didn't know where the door was. Apparently, there was a place you could almost literally press a switch and open that door, but they couldn't find it. So they broke in with sledgehammers and chisels, and they smashed their way into the Great Pyramid. And then, at a certain moment, when they're about 60 or 70 feet into the Great Pyramid, they hear something dropping in a hollow space. A big something has fallen in a hollow space. They head towards that sound. And then they enter the original corridor system of the Great Pyramid. And that's the way we all go in now. We go in through that Robber's Tunnel, and then we go up the Grand Gallery, but we can also go down. We can go down to the subterranean chamber, which is 100 feet vertically beneath the base of the Great Pyramid, deep in the bedrock. I actually think that was the original sacred site on that monument, is that subterranean chamber. I don't advise anybody with claustrophobia to go down there. You're very conscious that you've got a 6 million ton monument sitting right above you in a place that has earthquakes. It can be quite oppressive, but that's just a hint of what's under the Giza Plateau. That's an accessible bit, but it's already obvious that there is so much more. Some of it's been picked up with ground penetrating radar, and I'll take this opportunity to say that the hysterical reaction of mainstream scientists to the announcement by Filippo Biondi.
What is he saying?
He's saying that there are enormous structures under the second pyramid, not the Great Pyramid, under the pyramid attributed to Khafre, Khufu's successor, the structures that go hundreds of feet deep under there, structures that involve spiral kind of stairways. The reaction has been overwhelmingly dismissing this. Archaeologists they won't look further. They say it's impossible and they won't look at it. And I think that's shameful for people who imagine they're scientists. They should be looking further. I'd like to see the technology trialed in Turkey. There are underground cities in Turkey, Kaymakli, for example. We know every room in those underground cities run this technology on them. If they accurately reproduce what we already know is there, then we can be pretty sure they're accurately reproducing what's under the Giza pyramids. We need to do a lot more work before dismissing this. So I remain open to the notion that a huge underworld awaits discovery under Giza, and the ancient Egyptians themselves felt that way. They felt that Giza, the ancient name for it was Rostau, it was an entrance to the underworld. They saw it as an entrance to the afterlife realm. It makes sense that there would be much.
Rothschild, did he just say? Because Candace was talking about the Kazan or something empire.
To say that the hysterical reaction of mainstream scientists to the announcement by Filippo Biondi.
What is he saying?
He's saying that there are enormous structures under the second pyramid, not the Great Pyramid, under the pyramid attributed to Khafre, Khufu's successor, the structures that go hundreds of feet deep under there, structures that involve spiral kind of stairways. The reaction has been overwhelmingly dismissing this. Archaeologists they won't look further. They say it's impossible and they won't look at it. And I think that's shameful for people who imagine they're scientists. They should be looking further. I'd like to see the technology trialed in Turkey. There are underground cities in Turkey, Kaymakli, for example. We know every room in those underground cities. Run this technology on them. If they accurately reproduce what we already know is there, then we can be pretty sure they're accurately reproducing what's under the Giza pyramids. We need to do a lot more work before dismissing this. So I remain open to the notion that a huge underworld awaits discovery under Giza, and the ancient Egyptians themselves felt that way. They felt that Giza, the ancient name for it was Rostau, it was an entrance to the underworld. They saw it as an entrance.
Sounds the same. Because, let's see, it should still be in my browser. Khazarian Empire. The Khazarian Empire was a powerful and semi-nomadic Turkic state that controlled the Pontic Caspian steppes, spanning part of modern Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. The Khazars served as a crucial geopolitical buffer between the Christian Byzantine Empire and the Islamic Caliphates. The Khazars emerged following the collapse of the Western Turk Khaganate, their ruling class largely stemming from the Ashina clan. I'm not sure of timelines here. The Silk Road, conversion to Judaism. In the 8th century, the Khazar king and ruling elite famously converted to Judaism, a highly debated move scholars believe was likely driven by political neutrality. Well, this would be pretty late in the game. But anyway, interesting there. Because that does definitely sound like a Rothschild.
To the afterlife realm. It makes sense that there would be much underground structures there.
And you've been alone in the pyramids?
Being with large groups in the pyramid is difficult, in the sense that the pyramid to me feels like a personality. When I'm in there with a large group, I feel the pyramid withdrawing. It's like it doesn't want to speak to you anymore. The place becomes a dead space. But if you can be in there with a very small group or be there alone and just be still, let the silence descend, sit in that silence, in the very low lighting that's in there, just pause and remind yourself that you're in the last surviving wonder of the ancient world. And it's an incredible privilege to be there. And just let it speak to you. And it does. This is, of course, my critics will say another proof that Hancock's a lunatic, but I'm just telling you what happens to me. I think it's a monument that communicates.
What did it say to you?
It said to me, go further. Very much so. I feel, in a weird way, validated by the Great Pyramid. I think it's not only me, others as well, who've devoted big chunks of their lives to the Great Pyramid, like Robert Bauval, who is a great man, by the way. The Orion correlation, the recognition that the three pyramids on the ground are laid out in the pattern of the belt stars of the constellation of Orion, makes radical and important changes to our understanding of ancient Egypt. Again, that's another thing that's been leapt upon by the archaeological mafia because they want to destroy every new idea rather than spend a bit of time thinking about it.
You guys know that I only drink one type of coffee these days, and it's called Cometia.
If what you're saying is true around the first civilizations being 20 plus thousand years ago, what does that mean for us, for our lives?
Oh, it's really important meaning for us because it will finally remind us and tell us once and for all that we're not what it's all about. It's not all about us. The whole human story is not about us. It's not inevitable that it comes to this, and that we are temporary, like every other civilization. We're so filled with arrogance and pride right now in our technological achievements, our great abilities, our great powers. And the arrogance that comes with that, the Greeks used to call that hubris. It ultimately ends in nemesis, ultimately brings you down. Arrogance is not a good thing. It's not a good thing in an individual, and it's a terrible thing in a civilization.
It also means that a lot of the things that we've dismissed as, conspiracy or, hocus pocus, whatever, might not be. I mean, you talk a lot about like astrology and stuff like that. And
yeah, I think we should keep open to systems that the ancients used, which we've dismissed, which might be astrology is one of them. What does astrology ultimately say? It ultimately says that we, these beings, these humans, aren't isolated, but are connected to the universe and are affected by everything that happens in the universe. And it's recognizing that there may be patterns in that. And instead of just rubbishing that or doing a few investigations, I think it may be worth looking further into that. Worth looking further into telepathy too. My friend Rupert Sheldrake, a serious scientist, one of the very few who's doing serious scientific work on issues like telepathy and like telekinesis, being able to move things with your mind. Mainstream scientists, most of them will just laugh at that. Absolute rubbish. Yeah, go away, you're a lunatic. But why are we lunatics to look into those things? It's really interesting and it's really worth investigating. We should realize that we have a heritage of hundreds of thousands of years, and I believe it's even older than 315,000 years. We do not have a heritage of 100 years, which is the heritage of modern science. Well, let's be generous. Let's put modern science even back to the Greeks in a way, but it doesn't become what we would recognize as science until the 19th century, really. So it's a very young thing. If you take the human being as the heart of this, and you were to find a little pimple on the nose of that human being, that would be science. Mm-hmm. It's a pimple on the nose of hundreds of thousands of years of human experience. Why should we be so arrogant to dismiss those hundreds of thousands of years of human experience in the favor of 150 years maximum of so-called science?
I mean, one of the interesting things is I actually did go to the Amazon rainforest in Peru. And they've discovered these like big square things underground.
I've been involved in that.
What is that?
Well, the name that's being given to them is geoglyphs.
Geoglyphs.
I think I know this one. Nobody knew they existed at all until about 40 years ago.
Really?
And because the Amazon rainforest is a rainforest and densely covered with canopy. However, it's constantly being settled. This is a problem in itself. It's constantly being settled. The Amazon is being cleared and it's being turned into farms. It's the clearance of bits of the Amazon initially that exposed these huge geometric structures under the rainforest. No longer under because they cleared the rainforest. Now with LiDAR, I've been involved with Martti Paasonen. In fact, he was on my Netflix show. He's an archaeologist from Finland, and with Alceu Ranzi, a Brazilian geographer. What they're doing is a dense LiDAR survey of the whole of Acre province in Brazil. This is in Acre province as well. The areas that are still under canopy rainforest. And LiDAR can see through the canopy, and it can see raised objects underneath, and it can actually give you the shape of that object. Then they can go in, low impact, just a few of them, go in, check it out, see what's there, and then begin the archaeology on the site.
I mean, this is a prime example. I've got a list here of things that we used to believe and things that, how those beliefs have changed. And one of them was that we used to believe that the Amazon was an untouched wilderness.
That's right.
But in the 1970s, we discovered, 1,000 of these structures?
At least. They're confident now from the LiDAR work that you're talking of thousands, 3, 5, 6,000. There are also roadways that run for 100 kilometers plus. There's absolutely no doubt that the Amazon once supported a population of millions with extraordinary clever management of rainforest soils by creating a man-made soil that they call terra preta. It's still used in Brazil today. We are having to completely reconceive the Amazon. It was thought of as a pristine rainforest, which a few human beings wandered around aimlessly in hunting, whatever. Now we know that it was the homeland of a very large population who lived in city-sized communities, who joined those communities with long, straight roadways. It's as though the veil is being pulled back, and we're beginning to see a completely untold story in the Amazon. And these geoglyphs, very precise, rectangles, triangles, circles, squares, all of these, it's geometry. It's geometry. What's it doing there in the Amazon? And when I talked to a local shaman about this, and I did on camera in the Netflix show, he talked to me about how important these places still are to him, that these places were made by their ancestors, that they're places for shamanic gatherings, places for shamans to use specifically to contact the world beyond. Let's be clear about this. All civilizations, including ours, although we may deny it, all of them emerged from shamanism. Shamanism is the essence of the human adventure. And all civilizations emerged from shamanism. And this one was no shamanism, yes. Shamanism being the system of using altered states of consciousness to gain direct access to other levels of reality.
Like psychedelics?
Yeah, psychedelics, or you can fast for a month. That will give you some visions too. There are other ways, but psychedelics are the most efficient way to enter the altered state of consciousness. And shamans are masters of the use of plant medicines everywhere in the world, but particularly in the Amazon rainforest. This is where you see it most strongly. And DMT, the active ingredient of ayahuasca, is very fast acting in the way that it's normally consumed. Okay, it's normally vaped or smoked. It produces a 10-minute journey literally to the other side of reality. And there's not much you can do about it once you're in there. But then you're out again. Ayahuasca is a very clever technology. The ayahuasca brew contains DMT. DMT is not orally active. So you can drink a tea with loads of DMT in it, and it's not going to do anything to you because there's an enzyme in the gut that destroys it. The ayahuasca vine contains a chemical that shuts that enzyme down and allows the DMT to be absorbed orally, producing an experience that can last for hours, that can be physically very uncomfortable. What they're doing at Imperial College is they're giving them DMT by intravenous infusion, using basically anesthesia technology to constantly top up the dose to keep the individual in the peak state. And unlike other psychedelics, there's no tolerance with DMT, so you can keep on dosing people.
When you've taken ayahuasca 80 times?
Something like that. It's not just... It's important to be clear about a number of things. First of all psychedelics are extremely serious matters. They are not to be taken trivially. They are extremely serious. With experienced use of ayahuasca, one of the very common reports is this moral dimension, that you are presented with your own life. with what you've done with your own life, with the pain that you may have caused to others. And suddenly that pain that you caused to another person, which you dismissed as they just deserved that, they just deserved those words, you suddenly get it from their point of view. You feel the agony that your words caused that person. And you find yourself, did I do that? Did I say that? You suddenly see what you are. You can't go back into your own past and change negative and useless and pointless things that you did. You can't do that. But you can avoid repeating them in the future. And it's that teaching of a moral lesson that I find most valuable in ayahuasca. It's helped me to come to terms with my tendency to swift anger. I'm very aware that that's a problem I have, and it's something I need to do something about. And ayahuasca has helped me with that. I've become gentler and softer. Not gentle enough, maybe. It's a journey. It's not an overnight transformation, not a magic pill. The main work with ayahuasca comes after the medicine. The main work comes with what you do with the experience, how you integrate it into your life. That's where the work begins. People say, oh, it's so easy to take a brew. Well, it's actually not that easy because you're going to vomit and have diarrhea, but easy. But that's where the work begins, not where it ends.
And that emotion, does that stem back to your relationship with your parents? Because I was reading about your early years.
Look, we're all frail human beings. We're all messed about in lots of ways. We all have issues in our lives.
You said regret.
Regret. Yes, I do regret saying hurtful and unkind things to a number of people. Over the years, I do regret that very much. I do regret very much that I wasn't mature enough to realize why my parents were so difficult. That I never really forgave them for that. I never really forgave them for the strangeness of my childhood and the various things that happened. I never really saw it from their point of view. My mother lost 3 children aside from me. I'm an only child, but her first child was carried to term before me and born dead. Then I was born, I lived, and then the next 2 both died at the age of a year. Well, I know now, as a father, I know what a catastrophe that is for a person, for a mother to lose 3 children like that.
You said weird childhood.
Yeah. So this is me. This is little Graham here with my mother and my father. It was 1954 that we landed in India. My father was a consultant surgeon, and so he went as a missionary surgeon to India, to a place called the Christian Medical College in Vellore in South India. And we lived in a tin hut. But he was following his faith. He was doing what was right for him. He was giving his skills to help people. I realize that now, and a lot of resentment I have towards him, I probably, shouldn't have. He was an odd guy. He was very eccentric. He used to take me in to watch dissections. There were still hangings in India at that time, and he would dissect the prisoners after the hangings. He had me in there watching it. He took me later on.
What age?
5.
You were watching bodies being cut up at 5?
I was, yeah. Absolutely. Very strange. See, it was presented to me as completely normal, but it was strange. Fundamentally, he was a good man, I believe.
But I think allowing a 4 to 5-year-old child to see those things is deeply traumatic in a way that you probably don't recognize until later.
I agree. It's come home to me more and more as the years have gone by that what happened to me in those years in India scarred me deeply. It wasn't just the operating theatres and the dissections. It was the gloom and the misery and the despair that settled over my family at that time. And I don't think I ever really recovered from that.
Did you have nightmares?
Yeah.
And what were those nightmares?
Usually nightmares of loss. Usually nightmares of suddenly I'm alone. I'm completely isolated, lost, alone.
The reason I ask these questions is there's only ever been one other guest who I sat here with a couple of years ago, who I believe's dad was a surgeon, and his dad brought him in to watch operations and dissections when he was young.
Yeah.
And scarred him in a way that he didn't realize until later.
Yeah.
And he told me about the nightmares of waking up in the night and seeing those bodies of those people around his bed on a predictable basis, and told me he's actually the guy that coached Michael Jordan and then Kobe before Kobe Bryant passed away. And he told me still as an adult, those bodies join him at nighttime. So he'll wake up at nighttime and he'll see them around his bed. So,
well, thank you, universe. That didn't happen to me. I don't remember having gruesome nightmares. I remember a feeling of loneliness and abandonment. That's what I remember.
Loneliness and abandonment.
Mm-hmm. I've always felt that way. I was always an outsider at school, everywhere I've been, all my life. That's what I'm for. I'm here to be an outsider. I've come to that conclusion. And I need to do that well. I need to provide an alternative point of view on the past.
There's a real cost to being an outsider.
Oh, yeah. But there are also some benefits. We are what we are. And for me, I was always strange. I had this childhood in India. I didn't fit into the British school system. I was a total failure at school. I could not connect. With any of it. It seemed I just didn't get it. What was this about? And the cruelty, the viciousness. My dad went to a boarding school and had a good experience, so he sent me to a boarding school in Durham in the north of England. It was the cruelest place. Beatings going on. I was repeatedly beaten about the bare buttocks by a sadistic headmaster with a cane. I couldn't fit in with the other kids at school, and I don't feel victimized for being an outsider. I feel it's a privilege. I feel I've been given an opportunity to take a different view of things as a result of being an outsider.
Are there words unsaid here with these two people in your life?
Yes, there are so many words unsaid. I'd like to go back to my mum and say, I understand why you were so obsessed with keeping me alive and making sure that I did something with my life. And I'd like to say to my dad, look, you were pretty crazy, but you did at least inspire me to be eccentric. It's a funny thing getting older. I'm 75, 76 in August. One of the things it does is you realize how collapsed life actually is. I remember being a teenager, and I remember being a young man, and I remember being middle-aged. And the feeling is, you're immortal. It's going to go on forever. Everything's going to go on forever. And it's long. It's long. Lots of time to do the things you want to do. I have a message. No, it's not long. There is not lots of time. If there's things you want to do with your life, start now. Start right away. Don't wait. Otherwise, you'll not have the opportunity. Life is very short. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift that the universe has given to us. We are responsible for returning that gift by, as far as possible, within the circumstances that the universe has given us, living a full life and contributing something worthwhile to that life. Not being a robot, not being commanded what to do. We need to learn to think for ourselves. This is something that is so easily forgotten. It's a miracle that you and I are sitting here at all, that I'm here, that you're here, that we're here together. It's an absolute miracle. It's a result of billions and billions of years of processes in the universe, which had nothing to do with us, randomly bring us together at this point. It's really quite a miraculous situation. To be alive, to be born at all, is a miracle. I think it was Voltaire who, talking about reincarnation, who said it's no more extraordinary to be born twice than to be born once. And I think there's a point in that.
Are you religious? Do you believe in a God? Or
I would say that I am, that I pay close attention to what I would regard as the spiritual, non-physical side of life. But I do not belong to any organized religion. One of the things I don't like about organized religion is that your relationship to the divine, whatever you call the divine, spirit world, whatever you want to call it, your relationship is mediated in some way. Some priest or rabbi or mullah teaches you how to mediate that relationship. And I think what's important, for me anyway, in the spiritual inquiry is a direct relationship, a direct experience. Rather than being taught something, I want to experience it for myself. And that's why I found ayahuasca very, very valuable, because it has enabled me to experience something that is absolutely impossible to experience in normal everyday life. We're so plugged in. We're so plugged in to the physical world, and we have to be. We've got to be. We've got to obey the laws of physics. We've got to deal with.
I'm not into psychedelics.
The interesting thing about DMT in particular is when you speak to people who have done DMT,
Like,
you know,
oh yeah, it'll make you think about what you know, you shouldn't have said this, you shouldn't have said that, or I'm like, I'm always beating myself over the head. I mean, particularly with my children, my father. You know, moments when I was frustrated and my dad and upset. I'm like, I mean, God, do I beat myself over the head with all of this shit? I don't even psychedelics.
now I spent about a year working in quite a big psychedelics company I got really fascinated. I'd left my company. I didn't have anything to do with my time. So I started this podcast and I also, on YouTube, and I also started working in a psychedelics business because I found the studies on mental health and psychedelics really interesting. So I have quite a deep understanding, I guess higher than average, of ibogaine and ayahuasca and DMT. And my partner is very, very spiritual and has done all these things as well. So one of the fascinating things is how similar people's experiences are on something like DMT. Funnily enough, your description of these creatures saying you belong to us now is almost verbatim what one of my friends described 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That they were teleported into this like 4K realm where these creatures that are like slightly animal in that anatomical structure, maybe slightly a little bit human as well, basically was like had taken hold of him, and they were very curious and inspecting him, very colorful realm, and then they kind of sent him back, or at least, you know, after and it does make one wonder. I think one of my conclusions was if inhaling a small chemical can completely take me to another place, then, and if you, from a reasoning perspective, it's just one inhale of a chemical, then it goes to say that my current perception of reality is as fragile as an inhale of a chemical. Like me thinking that I'm here with you now is as fragile as inhaling one chemical. So to think that this is base reality, when the difference between this and being with some grasshopper people in 4K
Exactly.
is literally an inhale. It just, that, for me, I was like, oh wow, okay.
It's an extraordinary realization when that comes, and it causes us to question the nature of reality itself. And this is what's really important about these medicines. First and foremost, you're right. These psychedelic medicines are proving incredibly effective as therapeutic tools. And that's great. I really think that's incredibly valuable. But there's another level to go, which is the inquiry into the nature of reality and the inquiry into what consciousness is. These medicines are very effective means to conduct that inquiry, and that's why I applaud what they're doing at Imperial College in London. They're also going to be doing trials at the University of California, San Diego. They're going to be doing trials in Costa Rica.
I don't know. I'm also concerned about the motivation of the people who do this and what they're going to use it for.
A whole range of places now are looking into this because it's really interesting. People coming back and reporting the same experience when they haven't compared notes yet. How do we explain that? Because it's in a vision, and people say that at the moment, the default mode is to dismiss it and say that's just rubbish, don't waste time on it. Our preconceptions about the nature of reality should not limit our inquiry into the nature of reality. And at the moment, still, unfortunately, there are preconceptions about the nature of reality, which is that it's material-based, that there's nothing else to it, really. Everything is reduced to matter. Even consciousness is reduced to matter. It's reduced to the physical matter of the brain.
Reduced to going shopping.
We don't know that for sure. We don't know what's going on. Consciousness is absolutely not understood. And so when we have mysteries, like people who are injected a small dose of a chemical like DMT and go off into a completely other reality, that's really interesting. And it's it's at least as interesting, if not more interesting, than exploring other planets right now. I think we need to explore ourselves first. We're not in shape as a species to start exploring the universe. We don't want to export our toxicity to other parts of the universe until we've overcome it, until we've grown up as a species, which we haven't done yet. We need to know ourselves. Psychedelics are one way to do that. Not used irresponsibly, but used responsibly in a structured, careful, thoughtful way. They can be
also stop bringing up psychopaths all over the place.
Very helpful in knowing ourselves. That's the journey we need to do first. Go to Mars by all means, go to the moon, go even further. But do this first. Know who you are first before you start doing those bigger and wider investigations. Get all that sorted out, because we've hardly sorted out anything on this planet, and we're talking about exploring other planets. Well, I'm all in favor of exploring other planets, but I'd like to sort out things on this planet first. That's where the resources should be.
I keep on telling everybody with my ice cream machine, I keep on going, yeah, they're taking us to Mars. They're taking us to the moon. You can't even make a freaking ice cream machine that works. Get back to the basics.
And we should stop kidding ourselves that we can just escape this planet and make a complete shithole of it, leave it and go and live somewhere else. No, we can fix this. Yeah. We are capable of fixing this. We're capable of fixing everything. Human beings have enormous potential. We're just using a fraction.
I'm sick and tired of, this is what the donut shop where I'm working now is opening another locale, and this place, we got problems all over the place. I mean, take care of what you have instead of just accumulating another thing. I mean, my ex did that all the time. I was just another one of his possessions.
Of 1% of it at the moment.
The question the obvious question that comes to mind is how. I see, maybe some kind of leader comes along.
Could be. I think we need to move past leaders.
I just don't know how else humans would change without some kind of leadership.
It's very difficult to see. I agree with you. It's very difficult to see how it happens, one person at a time, slowly through word of mouth, through experience. But look, everything in the ayahuasca garden is not all flowers either. There's a lot of very wrong behavior going on there. People are exploiting that medicine. Basically, drug dealers are exploiting that medicine and offering it irresponsibly to people in groups of 100 or even more. That's actually really, really stupid to do that. Ayahuasca is an intimate experience, and it needs to be done in a very small group, not a very large group. So it's not all roses. I'm not trying to paint these medicines in a false light. They have their downsides. They have their problems. They are extremely serious. We should always research and investigate before any experience with psychedelics, but they have a part to play. And it's an important part, and thank God we're seeing its effects, psilocybin effect on long-term depression, very important. Post-traumatic stress disorder, very important. These therapeutic breakthroughs hopefully will open the door to further inquiries into the kind of work that's being done at Imperial College. What does this really tell us about the mystery of consciousness? What does this really tell us about what we think is real?
If you're thinking about starting a business, one of the first decisions you'll have to make is
producing all of these depressed people. I'm like, she suffers from depression. I'm like, no, she doesn't suffer from depression. She's depressed. And, if you look around her, you might understand why. Again, it goes back to karma and changing the way we interact.
Justice and cosmic harmony. He enters the hall. There's a scale in the hall. In one pan of the scale is an object that represents his heart, oblique his soul. Heart and soul were the same thing for the Egyptians in that sense. And in the other pan is the feather of Ma'at, the feather of truth, harmony, and cosmic justice. You do not want your heart to outweigh the feather at that moment. You want, at the very least, to be in balance. And in order to be in balance, then comes into question the whole way that you've lived your life. Up on the wall of the hall, there are 42 little figures. They're called the 42 negative assessors. Each one of them is going to ask you a question. Did you steal? Did you kill? Actually, the 10 Commandments are all in there, and a lot more as well. Ideally, you should be able to answer no to all of those questions, but the ancient Egyptians always understood how frail human beings are and that we can always make mistakes. The question is, what do we do when we make a mistake? Do we learn from it, or do we keep on repeating it? And what I read into that is you were given, you, the deceased, you were given an incredible opportunity. We allowed you to be born in a human body. You could have a range of experiences that no other physical form on your planet could have. You had this huge brain. You had this enormous capacity. We gave this to you. What did you do with it? Did you use it well, or did you squander it and waste it? And at that moment, you'd better be there with some answers about how you used it well. So as I come towards the end of my life, I look very carefully at my life. I try to undo wrongs that I have done in the past if I can, and I try to make sure I don't do any more in the future. I want to be a nurturing and positive and useful person to the people around me.
The health situation you've gone through has clearly made you quite introspective, probably more so than you might have been 10 years ago, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was still immortal 10 years ago. Listen, each and every one of us, every single human being on this planet could die in the next minute. Life is that fragile. It's that sudden. You can never predict how long you're going to live. But what something like this does, it focuses the mind, and it does make me wish more and more that I can leave this life with as few regrets as possible, and that I can feel that I played a useful and positive role in the life of others, and that I even played, in some way, a useful and positive role in the life of the species to which I belong.
Are you happy?
I am very happy in a lot of ways. I'm blessed to have lived the life I've lived, to have traveled the world, to have the adventures that I have had. I'm blessed with a beautiful and wonderful wife and companion, my wife Santha.
You've got this wonderful picture of her.
Yeah.
She glows.
That's me and Santha. We met when we were about 40 years old. And I don't think we've been apart more than 4 days in the entire 30 plus years since then.
Wow.
We do everything together. We travel together. Santha's a photographer, brilliant photographer, and I do not have a great visual eye. So we work together. I do the words, Santha does the pictures. We have the adventures together. We did the scuba diving together. Santha nearly lost her life twice in intense currents scuba diving. She's brave. She's an adventurer. She's a wonderful mother. This is so important. Santha and I have 6 children between us. Santha brought 2 from her previous marriage. I brought 2 from my first marriage and 2 from my second marriage. So 6 children from 3 broken marriages is a potential disaster. Santha brought them all together into a group of loving, deeply committed siblings who care for one another, who are constantly in each other's lives, who are there to support one another. Santha did that by just being a brilliant...
See, she did that. And too many mothers out there, that's what I'm fighting. I mean, I listen to him talk about his children. Huh. That's what I want for my children. That's what I'm fighting for. The last thing I said to them when I saw them before leaving Madrid was be kind to each other, help each other, do well in school. I mean, well enough. Because my ex was always fixated, on perfect grades and everything. I was like, that's not what's important. You got to pass your classes, excel and, do well in the ones that you really enjoy. And you got to pass the others. have some fun. I mean, God, I want to protect them from so much. It's, children should not be going through adolescence with chaos around them. They're trying to find themselves. How are they going to find themselves if they live in complete and utter chaos? And be kind to each other. God, united. You can do anything. Huh. Look at my siblings. Oh, God. Oh, my younger sister, she always hated me. No. The others, it is what it is. There's nothing, nothing but to move forward. It's a shame because my sister's 2 children are head down the same path. I mean, her daughter is the same as her, same as my mother. My cousins, and my Lord. I had one cousin, she died of, well, I don't know, they say it was pneumonia, but a week. She was an opioid addict. And so, everybody in this country, I mean, I think everybody has somebody in the family who's died of opioid. When are we going to stop drugging ourselves up? I mean, this is the Waska. I'm like, no, we don't need to get people on more drugs. We need to get them off of frickin' drugs and get them working.
Loving person. So I'm very happy to have such a great partner who's stood by me through thick and thin and who's brought out these wonderful characters in our children and now our grandchildren. 9 grandchildren, 6 grandkids. All of it's down to Santa.
It's remarkable that through all the wonders of human history and all the things we talked about, that love, like this kind of romantic love, is so central, so important, so central to our happiness. I just thought, it's just a wonderful reminder of how easy it is to get caught up in the material and all the toxic, whereas, so much of it comes from just the simplicity of falling in love with someone.
Love is what it's all about, and love is giving. It's giving yourself to somebody else. It's putting the other person. Sorry, I'm going to end up crying. This is what my wife does all the time with everybody. She puts other people first, and others benefit enormously from that. I'm very fortunate. I think if I hadn't met Santa when I did, and we hadn't formed this joint life, I think I would have made nothing of my life. Nothing at all.
Really?
I think it would have just gone down the tubes. I needed a loving, steering hand at that point. Anyway, very lucky. I am happy. There are things that make me unhappy, of course, just like every other human being. I don't understand why those who are bitterly opposed to my work want to try and present me as some kind of fraud or grifter, but I suppose it's a easy way to lazily dismiss somebody else. Another thing that has been used...
Witch hunts, that's I mean, I've done a whole, that's all of these videos about Gary Melton. Often very comical, but not funny.
It's because I've considered the possibility of a lost civilization having an influence on other known historical civilization. I've been accused of racism as well. That I've been accused of taking away the authenticity of indigenous achievements, and that again has been without any receipts. It's just thrown out there as an accusation. Now, for me, with a multi-ethnic family, that racism abuse that has been thrown at me constantly is extremely hurtful and extremely painful. It's one of the few things that have been thrown at me that I actually cannot forgive. It's unforgivable to use that lazy, easy dismissal in a society where a lot of people don't read anymore. I mean, pretty much guarantee people who hear that on the internet, they're not going to go and read the books and actually find out what I said. They're just going to take it as face value. So that does hurt, and it does make me sad. But generally, I'm blessed, I'm lucky. I've lived a fantastic, privileged life. I've explored the world. I'm surrounded by love, and onwards and upwards as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Graham, I think at the end of the day, the thing that endures is the impact, the curiosity that you've provoked in people, allowed them to wander beyond the narrowness of our lives, which is quite miserable. A narrow life feels quite like a miserable life where you can't be open-minded and explore. And that's why I love these conversations. It's not to say that I always accept, when I have these kind of conversations, everything to be 100% true. But the net benefit for me is just expanding my mind to possibility.
Absolutely.
And please don't rob me of the opportunity to expand my mind to possibility. What would my life become without possibility or hope or all these things? And actually, when I look at graphs like this that show how our beliefs
become a couch potato who sits in front of the boob tube like most Americans these days.
Scientific understanding has changed, even in recent times, as recent as 2017. On this particular graph, I go, well, I would have some arrogance to assume that I know it all today.
Totally. Things are constantly changing. Every turn of the spade in an archaeological dig can change the whole story. Change the whole story. This is not limited to archaeology. This is found in all fields where there are specialists, that they tend to get locked into a particular reference frame and actually defend it in a territorial way. It becomes like a war, and they feel absolutely responsible to defend that territory against all comers, and will use any dirty tricks that are needed to be used in order to defeat the enemy. So you asked me a straightforward question, am I happy? Yes, I am happy, and I honestly answered you that there are certain things, particularly the racism assaults on me, that do make me extremely unhappy.
What else do I need to know about the possibility of an ancient civilization that might inform how I think about myself, my life, and I guess also our future? What I found so fascinating is, especially we're in a moment of this AI revolution, where you've got these sort of big forces of, you've got nuclear weapons over here, you've now got this advanced intelligence, there's humanoid robots on the horizon. And if there was ever a moment where the word, existential is being used in a way that is probably appropriate, for me, it feels like now.
Yeah, it feels like now. To me too. This is no doubt our species is poised on the edge of an abyss right now. Our technology has outgrown our mentality, and we're not in good shape to deal with the challenges that lie ahead. Unfortunately, the chances of a nuclear exchange are just higher and higher. And that's just a realistic assessment of the way the world is with these maniacal leaders. So what could we learn from the past? I believe we can learn that there's another way to live, that we don't have to do it this way.
How do you know?
That's something I believe.
Okay, believe.
That's something I don't know.
Okay.
I guess I'm optimistic that human beings have made it through all these centuries, all these thousands of years, all these hundreds of thousands of years, that we've made it through. We've made terrible mistakes, terrible things. I mean, look at the Second World War. God, no, how many people were killed there? 20 million Russians alone, if I remember correctly. It was just horrific, absolute horror. When I was born in 1950, the Second World War was only 5 years away, and at the end of it, and it hung over us. Our generation were aware of that, but it seems to me people today aren't aware of the horror of global war in the way that they were, and that adds to the danger that we will immolate ourselves. I think a new approach to the nature of reality is really vital. I think we need to begin to understand consciousness better. And what I would wish for the human species is that we understand we are actually all one, incredibly diverse, full of creativity and differences, but all one. And a mother in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa and a mother in New York City, they love their kids in exactly the same way. They hope for their kids in exactly the same way. There's no difference between them at all. As long as we're indoctrinated into this notion of divisive differences. I'm all in favor of differences between human beings. That's part of our creativity as our species, but divisive differences, that's what's going to kill us off. And that's, I think, the message that comes down from the past. Whether it's a correct message or not, the message is we, a former civilization, made a terrible mistake. And it resulted in a cataclysm that brought us down. I think we need to realize that can happen again, and that we are most likely to be the cause of that cataclysm ourselves. There may be a danger of further comet impacts. The Younger Dryas comet fragments, it's called the Taurid meteor stream. The Earth passes through it twice a year, in June and in October, November. There are hundreds of deadly objects in the Taurid meteor stream. It could happen, but I think a much more likely way that we're going to bring our civilization back almost to the Stone Age is nuclear war. We're going to do it to ourselves. Unless we wake up, unless we become more conscious of what it is to be a human being, of the privilege and the gift of being a human being, and how that privilege of gift belongs to every human being, not just to us. Yeah. But I don't know how that's going to be done. I do think psychedelics can play a role.
Okay, I'm not maybe so many times. Yeah, no, but I know how it can be done as well. Yeah, not by psychedelics, by some hard roll up your sleeves work. Prima donnas, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Rest of everybody else, check your ego at the door and get to work. That's the only way it's going to happen. So anyway, that's how my sons just understood that. God, what a path. What a path. Okay, so that's it right